Good morning. Welcome to Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. I apologize. Our big studio crew was not available to help me this morning. By our big studio crew, I mean we don't have any crew at all. And goodness gracious, look at us. This is just amateur hour. Got the collar messed up and everything. I won't lie. I'll tell you the truth. I sat down and I was about to have everything ready, and I realized that the lens was closed on my camera. So last minute, I had to make a dash over to the camera to get it turned on. And then that's why everything was so rattled. All right, now, goodness gracious. Here we go. Shields and Arrows. We defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. We're going to talk about, is everything just a popularity contest? Is that really all that matters? Whether it is politics or church, is that all that people care about? Just who they like, the way they talk, the way they sound? We're also going to talk about some gay flamingos. That's a thing. And then we're going to discuss two things we have to get right about the Bible, okay? You got to get this right. I think that if you do not get these things right, then the Bible is going to not make a lot of sense, both to you, to others, and whatever theology you develop moving forward is going to be not correct. Now, you may understand salvation at least by grace through faith in the completed work of Christ. So I think that you can still have eternal salvation if you get these two things incorrect, but you're going to be mistaken on a lot of other matters, and I will have bragging rights for all of eternity. And do you really want me to be able to gloat for all of eternity? All right, now, thank you all so much for being here and enduring with me. Good morning, Scott. We have him on. Scott has been not allowed to talk on YouTube for whatever reason, probably because he said too many things that aren't a lie. So if you say truthful things and you're not just lying all the time, then YouTube doesn't like it, and they kind of want you to, be quiet. So with that, we're finally getting it all together. Thank you all for joining us today. I appreciate it. Now, is this whole popularity contest thing really all that matters? That's what we seem to be seeing playing out in the presidential race, for example, because it's not about policy. This race has been nothing about policy. Now, when it came to Joe Biden and Donald Trump, it was a lot more about policy, because Biden was digging in. He was really planting his feet on his policies, whether that is Bidenomics, the border, his support for Ukraine, whatever. He was not backing down. And it was a matter of Trump's record of his jobs and bringing it into the massive flood of illegal immigrants and getting all these wars to an end. It was a debate about that. Then you have Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris is all happy, and we're clapping, and we're smiling, and policies, our policies are freedom, and our policies are joy, and our policies are, making Americans happy and feeling good, and that's what people want. They want those warm fuzzies. And so that has been her big platform. We get Tim Walz, we're happy, give the boys the tampons, whatever else that he may be promoting. And that's how this whole thing's playing out. Now, let's be honest. Granted, when it comes to politics, the candidate has always mattered. Your charisma, your character, the way you carry yourself, that has mattered. I'm not saying it doesn't. But there was once upon a time in which the popularity of the policy also mattered. Did people actually like your platform, what you were trying to achieve? And now, however, what we're finding, what we're observing is people don't seem to care that much about the actual policy. What are you going to do to make the grocery store cheaper? The Democrat solution is give you more money. Give you money to buy a house, price limiting, and all these policies to prevent corporate greed, so-called, which, if we look at actually the results of that, it's going to lead to more inflation, and it's going to lead to government-controlled prices, and then therefore companies are going to go under because they actually have to make a profit. And so the government's going to bail out these companies because they made them fix prices. So now these companies are staying afloat because it's more government money that's actually propping them up. And then what is that going to do? It's going to lead to more inflation. And the next thing you know, you were given $25,000 by, Mamala, yuck, to buy your house. And guess what? Housing prices go up $25,000. You're right back to where you were. And the entire policy makes no actual sense. If you have an operating brain and you can think about these things for more than 3 seconds and not be distracted by the TikToks, all right, of clapping and happy noises, you'll realize that the policies of Kamala Harris are no good. But does that matter? We talked about deserving yesterday. Trump deserves to have another term. Kamala Harris does not deserve to even be the candidate because she didn't receive a vote, let alone actually win the election. But when it comes to does it matter as far as the policies, this election is going to tell us. This election is going to be a metric for us to look at and see, does the American people actually care about policy, or is this whole thing just a big popularity contest, right? Class favorites. When I was in school, we used to have a thing called class favorites. Probably nowadays they don't even do it because that would, offend somebody. This is true beyond just politics as well. I think we're going to be discussing this topic today, but I think you're going to see how it expands beyond just who the president is, who the senator is, who is your local state representative. That this idea of a popularity contest transcends that, and it goes into every area, including our churches, our pastors, and it's going to probably be very discouraging if we look at the reality on the ground. But this election is going to be telling of how closely people pay attention. Are they actually looking at the candidates in regard to what they want for the country? Or are they just listening to all the happy noises and Beyonce singing freedom and Kamala Harris smiling and saying joy? There is this ageist mentality. We talk about racism, we talk about sexism, we talk about nationalism, but there's another ism that is going on in our nation today, and I want to point this out. I think that is a ageism, that there is a disdain for the older generation. The Democrats didn't like Biden. They didn't want an old man in office, right? But they realized that they couldn't let Bernie Sanders get in, even though Bernie Sanders was an older man, but he was an older man that was preaching what they believed. Bernie was a true fundamentalist. Biden was the more moderate Bernie Sanders light, right? Diet Bernie Sanders. And so they found him to be more palatable. Therefore, they promoted him. Kamala Harris couldn't get it done. Elizabeth Warren couldn't get it done. Pete Buttigieg, he didn't have much going for him, so he couldn't get the job done. So they went with Biden, kind of holding their nose while they voted for him. I'll remind you, one of the reasons why people kind of think this whole 2020 election was somewhat a little bit strange, a little bit odd, is because Democrats were not very excited to vote for Joe Biden. There was not a lot of energy. Okay? People weren't jumping up and down excited to go, pull the lever for old Uncle Joe. And yet somehow he got more votes than any presidential candidate in history. It's fascinating. Makes you wonder, makes you ponder, makes you wonder about these things and question them. But Joe Biden is an older man. Donald Trump is also an older man. I think that we need to consider how that factors in. We do not have a society that likes our major influential people to be older. You can see that in our music, for example. Once upon a time, you could have had an older person be a very influential artist in the realm of music. Now, in our day and time, think about who is at the top of the music charts. It's not older people. And if it is an older person in, demographic sense, they're only older in their actual age, but not in how they appear or how they conduct themselves. Jennifer Lopez is beyond middle age. Middle age is not 50. Middle age is late 30s, early 40s. Jennifer Lopez, though, she's at grandmother age now, and yet she doesn't dress like a grandmother. She doesn't act like a grandmother. So just because she may be somebody who is popular in culture and she's an older person demographically speaking, does not mean that that's actually a sign that we value the older people. Once upon a time, the idea of an elder was an older person that was respected. When they spoke, you listened. When Grandpa had something to say, you were quiet and you listened to Grandpa talk, because the idea is that Grandpa has been around for quite a while. Now, society's changed a lot. Used to, if we consider technology, let's go back to the 1920s. The 1920s, you had planes, maybe more primitive. Not a lot of people flew in planes, but you had planes. You had trains, automobiles. See what I did there? You had radio. You get to the 50s. You have some television. Not in every house, but you had television. You had, I guess helicopters were starting to come about. Planes were a little bit more common. You had the radio. If you were a older man in the 50s, life had not changed very much in the grand scheme of things as far as how people lived from the 20s to the 50s. Maybe people had, there was an ice box in the house now that we were in the 50s. Maybe you didn't have an ice box before. I can recall back when refrigerators were just called ice boxes. I'm going to start bringing it back. How about that? Now, compare that to today. So the 20s to the 50s was a span of 30 years. Let's consider 2020, 2024, even go back 30 years. That's 1994. 1994, there were bag phones. Like phones that were in a bag. You could put them in your car. The idea of internet, very primitive. You did not have internet at your house. You may not even have a computer on your desk in 1994. As a result, Grandpa of today did not grow up with the same kind of technology that we have. And so this has led to an ageist mentality. Now we look at Grandpa and we say, Grandpa, you are out of touch. You don't know. You don't know what it's like to have cell phones and the internet and YouTube. You're just too you're a dinosaur. You're archaic. You belong in a museum. That's essentially what society has said. They don't understand all this stuff, how all this works anymore. But they're forgetting something very important. With age comes experience. With age comes wisdom. And I will say, if we consider, as much as I hate to do it, even the Democratic Party, the older ones in the population understand that you can't outright say socialism. Now, Bernie Sanders, he's, kind of an exception to the rule. That's why the young people like him. You got the Bernie bros over in the, liberal spheres. But I'm thinking of the Nancy Pelosi's, Joe Biden's, even the Bill Clintons, this older generation. They understand that you can't come out and start promoting socialism in its name. You can enact some socialist policies, but you hide it. You disguise it a little bit. They know that you can't outright attack Israel and say that they're colonizers and therefore we need to free Palestine. Now, they may say some subtle lip service to Hamas and the Palestinians, but they're not going to outright do it because there is some wisdom of the ages, even in their age. We have said the older generation is out of touch and it's time to hand the torch over to the younger people. I am not someone that says we need an age limit for the presidency. Yes, Joe Biden is at his point in his age. And for Joe Biden, how old is Joe Biden now? He's 81. For Joe Biden, 81 he's beyond his capability, both physically and mentally. That is not true for everyone. Age is not a hard and fast rule. I'm going to actually go back and give you another example. There are some 18-year-olds that are capable of making an intelligent decision at the ballot box. There are some. They are few and far between. I actually would be okay with us raising the voting age. I would say that there was a times past when an 18-year-old was probably more mature than what they are now, because 18-year-olds of today are so coddled. And I was coddled, but it's just a byproduct of it. Now, I don't think I was coddled as much as others, but I didn't have to go work a job. I worked in the summer, but it was mostly for spending money. But I know a lot of my dad drove a bus. He had a bus route as a senior in high school. He had to get up early, drive a bus with other children on it. That's a level of maturity that I did not have. My mom, she started college, I believe. She was either had just turned 17 or was about to turn 17 when she was getting ready to start college. We were having people, if you go back a few more generations, we were having people starting families at 15 years old. Our 18 years olds of today are not mature enough. I would be okay with us raising the voting age. There may have been a time in which you could have had an 18-year-old be an effective youth minister at a church. I don't know that we have 18-year-olds that could do that now. So let's leave the older age out of it. Let's talk about the youngers. There's some people that could be at 18 mature enough to handle an intelligent decision at the voting booth. But there's some that aren't mature enough until they're 21, 23, 24. Maybe even 25, who can maybe even argue older. So this idea of people being too old for the job, I think we have many people that are too young. I honestly don't know that, what is it, 36 years of age to be the president? All right? I believe it's 36. It must be 35. I don't know if 35 is old enough. I would almost maybe say, let's add 10 years to that. Let's make it 45. I think you should be a little bit past middle age so you can have some wisdom. I think there's some merit in that. So now that we've hit on the younger age, let's go to the older. There's some people that are with it until they're 95 years old. I have some ladies at my church that are older than Joe Biden who are more cognitively with it than a lot of people that are very capable of making some very intelligent decisions. My grandpa at 81 years old was much more capable mentally and cognitively, very much with it. And my other grandpa, same thing. For some people, however, it may even be 75 when they start to decline. Everybody is partly depending upon what genetics do you have. There's some people who are just not genetically living as long. You can see that within demographics. There's also some people, though, that can live much, much longer and operate at a much, much higher level for a very long time. So I say all that, talking about the idea of age and Joe Biden and whatnot. Let's go back now to Harris and Trump and the ageist mentality in our nation. They see Donald Trump, who is an older man. And what have you been told? Old people are out of touch. They don't know. They don't understand the hips, the times. They don't understand technology. Just angry old people. They should go back to, I don't know, going on a senior citizens cruise playing shuffleboard. I don't know what their mentality is. Otherwise, we've got this younger woman, right? Kamala Harris. She's exciting. She jokes. She listened to Snoop Dogg while smoking marijuana. So if our society is not being informed and they're not paying attention, and this is just a popularity contest, what do they find more appealing? What's more popular? An old white man or a younger woman of color? If the presidential race comes down to policy and merit, Trump wins. If the presidential race comes down to just popularity and what people like, then Kamala Harris wins. It's very frustrating. Now, are there more people that just care about popularity and flair over substance? I'm not sure. I think there is a possibility that we do have more people who care about substance. I also don't trust what our polls say necessarily. I don't have confidence in our elections right now, unfortunately. But they've shot themselves in the foot when they changed rules for COVID. It's a bad place to be in your nation right now. So we're going to see what happens, how all this plays out. But this principle, though, this principle of popularity over substance, this is true within churches as well. And that's why I wanted to kind of transition over to this. Our churches today are not measured by substance. And there are some churches that believe they are substantive, when in fact they are not. I believe that Kamala Harris and the Democrats believe that her campaign is substance, that the idea of joy and freedom and moving forward, that is substance. Even though there's no policy in it. There's no meat to it. If we contrast that to churches, there are some churches that believe speaking Jesus, that's a term that you'll hear sometimes, speaking Jesus, that's substance. That says something. Even though they haven't really said what about Jesus. They may say walking with Jesus, having a relationship with Jesus, knowing Jesus. That says nothing about the gospel. A person's not saved by even having a relationship with Jesus. And I'm not even sure what they mean by that. In my own way, I think I can define it for you in a biblical way. But I don't know if they even know what they mean by that. Or maybe they'll say Christ is King. What does that mean? And is that even aligning with what biblical teaching says? Is he the king right now? He's the rightful king. He will take the throne one day. But was David king when he was in the fields with the sheep? Was David king when he was anointed by Samuel? Was he king when he was hiding in the caves while Saul was trying to kill him? Or was he king when he finally was crowned king? Our churches have so many sayings that sound so good and they pull on people's emotions. Do you have head knowledge or do you have heart knowledge? Those things may sound profound. Kamala Harris, she may deceive people when she starts speaking, waxing poetically about being unburdened by what has been. Or the return on investment of allowing people to buy a home so we give them free money. Return on investment. Or each person existing within the context of the world you live in. Those are vague things. It requires some more expounding. You can say a person exists within their own context of the times they live in. That's true. But are you going to give any further speak to that? Knowing Jesus may have a fundamental thing about it that is significant, but if you don't expound on what knowing Jesus is even entailing, then you're not saying anything at all. And churches today will say all these things that sound so good, but they don't mean anything. There's no substance to them. There will also be some speaking from a place of ignorance. You can hear Bernie Sanders wax eloquently about socialism and how to implement it. That's not bad Bernie Sanders, by the way, if I do say so myself. And you can hear him explaining how he would implement these policies. Taxing the rich, taxing the billionaires, because Bernie Sanders is now a millionaire. So millionaires are fine, but it's the billionaires, the billionaires. And he'll explain how the billionaires can pay for all that. And the math doesn't really work, I don't think. But if you do tax the billionaires to death, aren't you disincentivizing? Disincentiving? Sometimes I will start to use words and I can't quite figure out how you put them into proper grammar. Disincentivizing, I think that's it. Billionaires from actually becoming billionaires. In the same way that you can hear a socialist give and spell out his policies to implement these things, you can have some pastors present theology, whether it's covenant theology, replacement theology, or even some dispensational theology. And I'm hold to dispensational doctrine. And on the surface, it may sound good, and they may have a plan, and they may have a way to implement it, and they may even have their sources that they cite, and this and that. But then if you look on the ground, let's look at the examples. Does socialism actually work when it's implemented? How does it play out? And you get Venezuela, or you get the Soviet Union, and it's terrible for the people. It leads to mass starvation and suffering. It's unsustainable. At the same time, if we look at the doctrines that are being taught in churches, and yeah, sure, they may sound better than just the empty evangelicals that are talking about knowing Jesus and Jesus is king and all these things without any substance. They may have over here, they may have a presentation that has some homework done, some references to Scripture. They've devised a case, an argument. But when you actually test it and you look at the Scriptures, and you even look around the world today, is their view actually supported by both the Bible and even our own observations? Because if your claim is that Christ is king today and God's will is being done on earth as it is in heaven, I I would say that creates a massive problem for your theology. So our churches today cannot be governed by popularity. We need to have actual substance. Now, unfortunately, how do you get people to come? How do you get people to accept what you're trying to teach? That they need to not just look at what's flashy and shiny and sounds good, tickling to the ears, but is actually important. For some people, just as with horses, you can lead them to water, but you can't make them drink. When it comes to theology, some people will hear it and they'll never receive it, but there will be some. At the same time, you've got to try. I think that it doesn't matter how you present things, so we try to do a good job. We try to present things in a way that people understand the importance of it, the significance of it, and hopefully we can win, right? May the best theologians win, and I think we have the best theologians. Moving on, let's talk about Mark Zuckerberg for a moment. Mark Zuckerberg has finally admitted that he has been pressured by the Biden-Harris administration to restrict free speech on his platform. It's coming from the Daily Wire right here. And so the CEO of Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, WhatsApp, a whole bunch of stuff, has been repeatedly pressured by the Democrat Party to censor absolutely legal speech, free speech. And he actually wrote this, as the article says, in a letter to the Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. And so, what does this mean? What does this say? First of all, this is nothing groundbreaking. We all knew it was going on. We knew this, whether it was the Hunter Biden laptop story or Donald Trump being deleted from social media apps. We know that this has been going on. But now that Mark Zuckerberg is actually vocalizing it, he's come out recently and said some interesting things. He talked about Trump, being, I always use the word cool. He used a different word, but standing up, fight, 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 when he was shot. Are we seeing a shift? Are we starting to see the blue wall in the media actually start, not media, not CNN, those are all owned by the Democratic Party, but social media maybe, the Silicon Valley. Are we starting to see a break in that? There are some people who are disturbed by what they're seeing with this election cycle regarding Trump. Some of the alliances with Trump and Kennedy, Trump and now Tulsi Gabbard has come out and supported Trump and even Elon Musk, because these are not traditional conservatives. Elon Musk is not conservative. He's liberal, classically liberal, I would say, pro-free speech, but he's not in favor of traditional marriage. Maybe he's a little bit sympathetic to pro-life, maybe not a fan of third trimester abortions. Maybe he is, not for transing the kids, but he doesn't have a problem with transing the adults. Mark Zuckerberg is no conservative. Left-leaning, absolutely. Tulsi Gabbard, she's a friendly to the Second Amendment to a degree, but I don't know how friendly she is. She's not a pro-life person. She's not a radical pro-choice person, but she's not pro-life. And there's people disturbed about this. What's happening to the Republican Party? What's happening to conservatism? Is it going away? There is a truth that Republicans are nothing but Democrats from the 1990s. Whatever policies that the Democrat Party was pushing 10 years ago is going to become the mainstream Republican view of today. Back in 2008, Barack Obama said that marriage is between a man and a woman. Now you cannot get conservatives to say it. The only conservative that had the guts to say it in public was Ron DeSantis, actually defending traditional marriage. Y'all want to know why I like him? It's for that reason, because he had the guts to do it. So I am worried about the course of the Republican Party. But let me say this. If Musk, Zuckerberg, Tulsi Gabbard, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. more so represent the center, they represent the center of the actual society, the American people, what that shows is, I think potentially that we are shifting the center back to the actual center. Where the center supposedly was drifting more and more this way. Well, I guess this is my right, but that's your left, so you can follow along that way. The center was drifting further left. And what became safe, legal, and rare became up to the point of birth. And then if you're Ralph Northam, you can even kill the baby afterwards. And this caused people who were center to all of a sudden, like Elon Musk's famous meme, where he's a stick man standing in the same spot, but as the center moved more left, he found himself standing in the right side of the aisle. If we can get that center to move back to where it actually belongs, over here on your right, maybe, just maybe, that means that the right can go back to being the right. That's maybe sounds almost counterintuitive. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but it's a hope. That if we can get the center back to where it belongs and saying that, listen, we are central people. We're independent. We don't think abortion should be up to the point of birth. We think you should have free speech, and we don't think that you should pump kids full of hormones and castrate them. Then maybe, just maybe, this will allow the right all of a sudden to say the center has been shifted back. And now we can start saying, hey, we would like states to have the individual right to vote on the marriage issue. Can we please do with marriage as what we did with abortion? Can we make it back to the states? Please? Can we please do that? Can we decide for ourselves? So whether or not Oklahoma as a state can decide what they want to do. And Texas as a state can decide what they want to do. So in Oklahoma, maybe, I don't even know if it'll happen in Oklahoma, but at least possibly, maybe on a county basis, counties can decide. In Bryan County, we're not going to do same-sex marriage as if it's a thing, even though it's not. Because a man can't marry a man, a woman can't marry a woman. But then you go over to Los Angeles County, and you can marry whatever you want. You can marry a man, a woman, a dog, a billy goat. You can marry your car. You can marry 500 people, whatever. Let them be as weird as they want. Because unfortunately, that's just how we're going to survive. But it's hope, at the very least. All right. Now, let's move on and talk about... Ready? Gay flamingos. I bet you probably were not expecting to hear that. But this comes from CNN because, of course, it does. During the mornings, and Ken got to see some of the magic happening as we were visiting yesterday morning. I look for things to talk about. I try to figure out what's important, things that are worth noting. And here's an article from CNN. A same-sex flamingo pair are raising a newborn chick together after rare feat. Now, think about that. If you just read the title, a same-sex flamingo pair are raising a newborn chick together after rare feat. Does that kind of sound like they're trying to say that these same-sex flamingos managed somehow to have a newborn chick? Yes. Yes, it does. Have all of a sudden flamingos figured out how to do same-sex reproduction? Maybe asexual reproduction. That's not what happened. The article goes on and it says, 7 fluffy white Chilean flamingo chicks are on display at a zoo in southwest England for the first time since 2018, and one is particularly notable for the way it made its entrance. Now, Ready? Are you expecting to see same-sex flamingos give birth to chick? Not quite. 2 male flamingos named Arthur and Curtis successfully hatched an egg together. A first for the Paignton Zoo. Oh my goodness. We have 2 male flamingos managing to produce a child. It's amazing. Nature's evolving. God's order of creation has been destroyed. Man has now made himself God. We are seeing Jurassic Park unfold in real time, right? You would be wrong to make these assumptions. As we read, it says the zoo has had several all-male pairings during past breeding seasons. So the same-sex couple is not an unexpected turn of events, said Pete Smallbones. What an English name. I bet he does have Smallbones. The zoo's curator of birds, but the zoo is not sure exactly how the couple acquired the egg. It's a mystery. How'd they do it? How'd they get the egg? It's 2 male flamingos. And then you get to the 3rd paragraph of the article. I wonder how it happened. Get ready, they're about to tell you. It's likely that this egg became available, unprotected, kind of just left in a nest. And then they've taken the opportunity, said Pete Smallbones, the zoo's curator of birds. As a bird department, we're more than aware of how it's a known thing for flamingos, penguins, and other species to have same-sex pairings. So it wasn't a shock, I suppose. It was a slight surprise. Just because it wasn't quite expected. Or it wasn't quite the expected male and female pairing. So what happened? According to the article, if you did not read the 3rd paragraph, it would sound like there was a miraculous birth of a flamingo chick by 2 male flamingos. What happened was 2 male flamingos that have paired up, now maybe they are engaging in strange animal actions together, decided to take an egg that they found. I guess it almost sounds like stole or maybe left unprotected in a nest. So they took an egg and then they hatched it. Not their egg, they didn't lay it. They stole it or found it and it hatched. It's a miracle. Nature showing us same-sex relations and raising a child together, how beautiful, right? That's the story. That's the whole story. During breeding season, the couples usually spend more time together and follow each other around the enclosure, but a pairing is confirmed when 2 birds pick a nest to share, whether they will take turns sitting on the mud mound with or without an egg. This year, however, a same-sex pair had an egg to sit on. While 2 male birds hatching an egg together is notably rare, it has happened a handful of times at other zoos. The successful hatching between 2 males highlights the social bird's innate parental instincts and flexibility, experts say. It also underscores the need for a conversation about the near-threatened Chilean flamingos that are declining in the wild and their native home of South America, according to the zoo's news release. Now, I wonder if they're threatened because they're not actually breeding males and females. If they're all turning to a same sexual type, relationship. Once again, sometimes they will claim that they are engaging in same-sex behavior, when in reality, I don't know, maybe they just did decide to share the same nest. I have no idea. There's a lot of things that are being claimed right now. So with all of this being said, what is the big story of these same-sex flamingo pairs raising a newborn chick together after a rare feat? 2 male flamingos that like to hang out together and share the same nest decided to take an egg, and then they just sat on it till it hatched. That's the story. Nothing new, no major scientific discovery. Just 2 birds that took an egg and sat on it till it hatched. Amazing. Life-changing. Altering, actually. Our entire worldview is shaken. Maybe we need to now adopt this amazing view that same-sex relations are natural and according to nature. Or maybe even God's own design, because after all, the birds did it. It always amuses me when scientists and other activists and social commentary people, whatnot, want to claim that because we see animals engaging in some strange activities means it's perfectly okay for humans to do it as well. As it's proof, it's only natural. It occurs in nature, so humans should do it as well. Is that really the argument you want to make? Male zebras, as well as many other males, grizzlies, you name it. If they find a cub or a foal that is not theirs, you know what they do? They kill it. They murder it so they can breed their mother. That's what they do. Animals are animals. There's no moral code. They behave as animals. That's why when your child's going crazy or you hear a heinous crime, we would say they're acting like an animal, a beast, animalistic, uncivilized, inhumane. Let's not refer to animals as our example of morality, because animals are animals. They have no morals. They have no standards. They just do. That's why man was made in the image and likeness of God. We are the ones that were created to comprehend Him, now at least to the degree that we can, to understand right and wrong. But after all, the left wants to be furries and behave like animals and take on the animal type characteristics. That's their platform, that's their approach. Yes, Ken, you're right. The egg was kidnapped. Those wicked flamingos. Maybe, just maybe, in this England zoo, there will be hellfire and brimstone falling down from heaven. One can only hope. Now, two things we have to get right about the Bible as we get ready to close out today's show. Christianity is confused on two major aspects. And these two things are so essential that you are going to be confused about the Bible if you can't get it right. And that is the kingdom and the unknown death and resurrection of the Christ. Those two things. And Christianity has showed their hand time and time again how ineffective they are at being able to study the Bible properly, because they have taken Catholic doctrine, courtesy of church fathers, quote unquote, such as Origen and Augustine and the like, and have allegoricalized the kingdom. So when you see in the Bible, it talks about the word kingdom, the kingdom of heaven, Jesus' parables, for example, we make this out to be a figurative, metaphorical teaching, that the kingdom is not a physical reign of the Messiah, but rather it is going to be Christ reigning in our hearts, guiding us, bringing about His will. The kingdom is, it's here, it's there, it's everywhere. It's, it's so profound. It's mysterious. The kingdom, it's God's will done in us, our work to build it. When a person's saved, they're now a member of it. We've turned the kingdom into an entirely figurative, lofty idea, and nobody knows what it means, all right? Nobody knows what it means. It exposes, our ignorance about the kingdom exposes our lack of study of the Old Testament. Blame who you want. I don't know. Catholicism for saying that now we are the new church. I appreciate the Gideons making their effort to print Bibles. But maybe just printing on the New Testament hasn't been the most beneficial for us. If we go to the Old Testament, though, and we study it, we give any serious consideration to what it says, taking it for what it says, stop putting on your mystical goggles and reading between the lines. Just let the Bible speak for itself. Verse 24, "And David my servant shall be king over them, and they shall have one shepherd. They shall also walk in all my judgments and observe my statutes and do them. And they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Jacob my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt. And they shall dwell therein, even they and their children, and their children's children forever. And my servant David shall be their prince forever. Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them, and it shall be an everlasting covenant with them. And I will place them and multiply them, and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. My tabernacle also shall be with them. Yea, I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And the heathen shall know that I, the Lord, do sanctify Israel, when my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore. Words matter. The Bible matters. To take this passage and make it a figurative spiritual idea is to do a level of theological gymnastics unlike anything the Olympics has ever seen. Who is they? In this passage, they is Israel. Now, the Catholics and the covenant theologians who stole it from Catholic doctrine will say that we are now the Israel of God. We're the true Israel. So therefore, you can retroactively go back and read ourselves into it. Fine, okay. So we're Israel. That's what you're saying. And they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Jacob my servant. What land is that? Are we going to live in Israel? How are we living in Israel right now? You talk about the kingdom. How do we live in the land right now? Is the United States the promised land? Is that the land that was given to Jacob, to Abraham? What does it mean? Oh, it's a spiritual land. It's the land wherever we walk. The kingdom is wherever we live. So now you've made Israel mean nothing, and you've made land mean nothing. Moreover, you will make a covenant of peace with them, and it'll be an everlasting covenant. What is that peace? It's the peace within my heart. Oh, it's the peace of God that surpasseth all understanding. That's the kingdom. It's the peace that's within me. So it's not a physical peace. So people will continue to murder each other. Children will die. Wars will continue. But the peace is within your heart. Because it's all about you. The kingdom's about you, isn't it? My tabernacle also shall be with them. What is that? Oh, that's the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit is in my heart. God tabernacles with me. We are one. I'm the temple of God. Verse 28, and the heathen shall know that I, the Lord, do sanctify Israel, and when my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore. How will the heathen know? Oh, they'll know because we will be happy, we'll be blessed. We'll share with them the amazing gospel, and they will know that Christ is King. That approach is what the majority of Christianity has done today with the idea of the kingdom. Whether they realize it or not, they've spiritualized it into oblivion. You have to get it right. You have to get it right. Because that passage, you're going to have to do the same thing. Ready? Here we go. Isaiah 9:6. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. Well, that could be the government in the sense of Christians carrying out government, leading the people. It could be that when Christ actually does come, the new heavens and new earth, the government will be upon his shoulders. Okay, we don't have We don't have any speaking of the new heavens and new earth right now. Seems to be born on this earth. Child born, a son is given. In this time. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end. Upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom to order it, to establish it with judgment and with justice. Well, justice would require judgment. I think that's going to happen with the people of this earth. Our view of the kingdom is so messed up because we've spiritualized it and made it all about us. We've got to rightly divide. Jesus is the rightful king. He's the rightful king. Is he carrying out his authority as king today? He's seated at the right hand of God the Father today. When Christ is king on earth, he will carry these things out. And yes, we can refer to him as the rightful king, and there will be a day in which everyone will call him king. We just don't need to make the kingdom now. We don't need to make the kingdom now because Christ is going to be a good king. He will be the greatest king, the King of kings. And when he is King of kings, God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So we got to get the kingdom right. Also, we've got to stop saying that people have always been saved by believing in Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. It amazes me how many people believe that. If they believe it, let's just go to Luke 9. And I'm looking for our passage here. Here it was. This is Luke 9. The disciples have been with Jesus for some time. They've even heard the Sermon on the Mount and everything. Let these sayings sink down into your ears, for the Son of Man shall be delivered into the hands of men. He's saying, I'll be handed over. I'm going to be crucified. He goes on to tell them this later. I'll be crucified, buried, resurrected the third day. If Jesus was teaching his gospel of salvation by grace through faith in his death, burial, and resurrection all this time, from the very beginning, shouldn't the disciples already know this? Verse 45. But they understood not this saying, and it was hid from them, and that they perceived it not, and they feared to ask him of that saying. Christianity, we have got to get it right, okay? Jesus was not preaching salvation by grace through faith in his death, burial, and resurrection. It's evident from this point. The disciples did not know it. It was only at this point that he revealed he was going to die, be buried, and resurrected. But he also didn't say that that was how God was going to implement salvation for everybody. That was a mystery that was yet to be revealed. The theologians, because they want to say that it's always been the one covenant people of God and salvation has always been by grace through faith alone, will make this argument because it wraps everything in a pretty bow. They'll say, we look back to the cross where Israel in times past looked forward to the cross. That is not what the Scripture testifies. If we can get the majority of churches, not even to rightly divide, I would love for that, but if we can at least get them to understand the kingdom being physical and Christ's ministry was regarding the kingdom to the people, and he was not telling them that they were going to be saved by believing in his death, burial, and resurrection, in his completed work. And this was new information, not known in the Old Testament, prophesied of, yes, but not clearly, to where you could just spell it out. That's why they didn't know it fully. Then we would be so much better at teaching the Bible and understanding these essential, fundamental doctrinal principles. And that is how we're going to defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. We've got to stand on these things. We are not here to win a popularity contest. We're here to tell it like it is. We're here to provide substance over flash. Hopefully we have some fun. Hopefully we do a good job. Hopefully we got a little style, a little bit of flair, right? And we need another generation that's ready to take up the mantle from those that have gone before us, because there's been great ones, and to try to fill their shoes is going to be extremely difficult. But we're going to do our best. Somebody's got to, and that's what we're going to do here at Shields and Arrows. Thank you for supporting my ministry. I'm Pastor Mark Baze. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll see you then.